Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Kid Native Bloody Elbow, joined by Dallas Winston and Zane Simon for the UFC Fight Night Mirror versus Bigfoot Vivisection. We are going to cut this card to ribbons alive on the table and torture it before your very eyes and see if there's any interest in this card whatsoever. Oh, wait, that was the care, don't care. We determined there's a tiny bit of interest. We're going to say who's going to win which fights, give you complete predictions, betting odds, the whole bit. Our expert prognosticators have been buried in research, watching videos, reading articles, maybe even telepathically communicating with fighters around the world. Are you guys ready for this, Dallas? How ready are we? You're supposed to speak.
That? Oh, I tried to communicate.
I see. This isn't Professor X. We got it.
Hi. What was the question?
I see Dallas is ready. Zane, are you more ready than Dallas? Even more ready than Dallas?
God, you know what? I don't think that's like a really high bar to set. I don't know if I can handle that kind of pressure right now.
Well, we don't want to easy now. This is a thoroughbred. We got to keep him from getting too worked up in this stable. All right. So general thoughts on the card, real quickly before we dive into the fights. Zane, you first.
I can say that the only article that has done any kind of traffic for us on this card at all this week was who's going to get cut when it's over. And, like, we're talking, you know, not, like, huge traffic, but, like, that's the only thing. And it's not, like, the only thing we've published. That's the only thing people want to read at all about this, which, to me, I think kind of says it all when you are looking at this card. Like, there's some decent, fun fights here and there on it, but it's a fight card that has zero interest at all.
No sizzle on this stakes. Dallas, do you disagree?
No, because there's really no big names, but I'm not sure why, but I don't think it's too bad. I'm trying to figure out why. Maybe I like T.J. Wahlburger or
He's
Macario.
Although he's rolling in off 2 ass beatings that he was on the wrong end of.
Who was? Say that again.
Wahlburger. He got knocked out in his last 2 fights.
Yeah, he fought some good guys though. I don't know. I like TJ because he doesn't seem like he should be able to win, but he's so creative. He kind of finds a way.
He can be fun. He can be fun, and it's entertaining to watch him take a beating as well.
It's always entertaining, Mr.
It
Wilcox.
is. I think the Barboza Michael Johnson fight is a little more significant than maybe we're giving it credit for. I think that's pretty much the only fight on the card. That and the comeback of Rustam Khabilov after he got beat by Vincent Henderson, only kind of semi-relevant, and maybe Alcantara is semi-relevant in the bantamweight division. We'll see. But anyway, let's dive in. 2 fights in the UFC preliminary Fight Pass card. And remember, this card takes place Sunday, not Saturday. So if you like Dallas and you're confused, this is a Sunday night card. Most of it's going to be on Fox Sports 1, but the first 2 fights on Fight Pass. First up, lightweights, Yvonne George versus Josh Shockley. Zane, you go first.
All right, this is probably a fight that Yvonne George should win, not because he's he's very much in the model of the Brazilian grapple brawler where he can't strike and he can't wrestle, but he can grapple really well.
An exciting combo.
Yeah.
Flailing.
But Shockley is like the exact right kind of matchup for him to have, which is somebody who wants to grapple and is going to be really aggressive and like is always going to be moving forward and trying to punch him and trying to take him down and outwork him and all that. Shockley's just kind of a fight on automatic kind of guy and not the most athletic guy in the world. So, but at the same time, I mean, you have to pick. It's like you're picking George based on his ability to out-grapple Shockley, but not really outfight him anywhere else, and that's definitely not a good thing. I mean, I'm kind of leaning George, but it's not comfortable. I wouldn't be at all shocked if Shockley beat him.
All right, and Dallas, your pick?
It seems like it should be a pretty good matchup for Batman, and I think he's okay. I mean, highly experienced. Both of these guys are really tough. Like, I don't know if Shockley will hang around a while, but and it's not in contrast to anything that Zane said, but I mean, he's like a gamer. He's a willpower guy. So, and he'll be a little taller and longer, but that doesn't make a lot of difference if he always wants to move forward and clinch up. So, I actually think it kind of plays into Batman's game somewhat, but I don't know. It's not like a groundbreaking fight, but I'll probably go with Batman here.
And Batman being Yvonne George. Because
Yeah, that
nobody
sounds
knows
a little more
this
like a
guy's
French
names.
female tennis player, but I always
Okay,
thought it
all right.
was Ivan Jorge, but what do I know about? I mean, it's not like we get any names right
Well,
in the
if
show.
it's Portuguese, it's not Jorge. So anyway, that's my best bet. But everybody knows my brand is mispronouncing names, especially four and one. So I'll just get to the odds right quick. George is favored minus 230 all the way up to minus 260. Shockley is the underdog plus 190 up to plus 211, and that brings us to bantamweights. Cody Gibson versus Douglas Silva de Andrade. Dallas, you can go first on this one.
Hey, well, I better address this to Zane. Is this Silva's bantamweight debut?
Yeah, long delayed.
Okay. Um, I mean, it seems like Gibson is an easy guy to pick as the favorite. He's bigger, he's the better wrestler, but Silva had a tough draw and it was the only loss. He got did he get finished by Takugov?
No, it was a decision.
So that's a pretty tall order for first stepping in. It was his first loss. I think Gibson's the safe pick here. And actually, Silva's, coming out of Brazil, even for that, I guess, standard, some of his competition's been kind of a little bit watered down. But he is the kind of dude that at any point in the fight, he's always a danger. Big power, lots of let's see, 22-1, 18 knockouts. So heavy hands. I think Gibson's going to be too big, and he'll be able to revert to his wrestling to throw his striking off. But the kind of dude that will, he only needs an inch of a sliver of daylight. So something to keep in mind.
All right, and Zane, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mostly have to agree. I mean, I think the big things are that Gibson hasn't shown a weak chin at all, and neither of these guys come out of a very good camp. Of really any note. I mean, Gibson trains out of like the Team Rhino, Doug Marshall's team, and
What are you saying by that?
I'm saying
Team Rhino,
that,
dude. Team Rhino.
Yeah, I'm saying that if you wanted technical advice on your career, I don't know that Doug Marshall's the guy that I would go to. And then Douglas De Silva is he trained like he was, at least before he got to the UFC, and I think maybe still now, was like training in his backyard basically with one of his buddies, and because of that he's built this really sort of janky but functional striking style. Like, it's based on him having huge power and being kind of a tree stump more than anything else. And I think in that matchup, the fact that Cody Gibson's base is as a wrestler and a really scrambly grappler, it gives him more of an advantage over somebody whose base is really going to try to sit in front and just, nail somebody hard enough to knock him out. So I got to give the edge to Gibson here.
All right, and the odds makers agree. They've got Cody pretty heavily favored, minus 235 all the way up to minus 278. And Douglas Silva de Andrade is the underdog at plus 190 all the way up to plus 221. And again, we get our odds from bestfightodds.com. And if you gamble, do so at your own risk. It's illegal in many jurisdictions, and always a bad idea to take on Lady Luck. And that brings us to the first fight of the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card. Welterweight Wendell Oliveira against TJ Wahlburger, who Dallas mentioned. A fun fighter. Goes on the submissions, often on the wrong side of a beating. Dallas, you can take it first. Why are you so excited about TJ Wahlburger? Why are you not giving up on this kid?
I'm not like that excited. I don't want to like overpronounce. He was just a name that I was happy to have back, and he's kind of like I said with Shockley. Like, I don't know, I am somewhat tend to appreciate like the underrated or underappreciated aspects. And Wahlburger, if you look at him fight, should not be able to do a lot of the things that he does. His striking used to be pretty rough. It's gotten a little bit better. For a submission guy, he doesn't have like any super duper wrestling credentials. And he's not like a traditional change level single or double guy. Like I wouldn't put him on like Aoki-esque standards, but he's got to get super creative, and somehow he finds a way to do it. When he fought Jake Hecht, I mean, in a transition, he just like latched up an armbar and rolled with it in the middle of a scramble. So I just appreciate his creativity. He'll probably need it in this one too. I don't know. I don't have a great beat on Oliveira. I know he's a striking specialist, but I would say to me he hasn't fought the competition as Wahlburger, and he's yet to demonstrate that he's got I don't know, maybe the ring craft to keep a guy like Wahlburger off him the whole time. He could just punch him in the face and knock him out. That's always a possibility with a striker against Wahlburger. So I don't have strong feelings. I would like to see Wahlburger win and do something unorthodox in the process.
All right, and Zane, your thoughts on this masterpiece of pugilism?
I have a really tough time picking Wahlburger. I think that it's basically like this fight will end in a finish, and it just depends on who you think is going to get that finish. Because Oliveira, yeah, I don't know that he has the ring craft to just like keep Wahlburger at range, but Wahlburger is also like he's obviously spent a lot of time working on his striking, and he's a very willing striker. Like he's the kind of guy who will sit right in front of somebody and trade bombs for a while before taking it to the ground and trying to scramble there. And I think if he tries to stand and trade with Oliveira, Oliveira just has way more power and speed. I mean, Oliveira was really touching up Ponzinibbio in his fight before Ponzinibbio finally just nailed him harder. And it speaks to Oliveira having some holes in his game, his footwork and his head movement and all that. But I don't know. I think I'm going to take Oliveira just because I think Wahlburger is more willing to engage Oliveira in his fight than Oliveira is to engage Wahlburger in his fight. And I think that that's probably more likely to cost him. If it doesn't, Wahlburger could certainly win via submission.
Yeah, I think Wahlburger has been shipped down to Brazil to feed the gods of violence and satisfy the Brazilian fans who want to see their local guys paced an American. But I do think he has a live chance. The odds makers have this one pretty close, although Oliveira is favored. He's favored anywhere from -125 all the way up to -140. Wahlburger is the dog at +105 all the way up to +115. And that brings us to Thiago Trator versus Mike Delatour. These guys are featherweights. And Dallas, you can go first.
Man, I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling on this one at all. For some reason, I was impressed with Delatour, and I can't remember why.
The Bocek fight.
Yeah, and I think it was maybe that he was surprising that he was an unknown and he fought so impressively against a guy who I thought was kind of a poor matchup for him. But then he had the Ortega fight. I picked him in that one, and that was originally a submission loss, right, before it was overturned.
Yep.
So, I'm not too sure. And, the same thing with, I don't think it was, isn't there a C missing from, is it Trator?
Trator.
It's Tractor, but it's spelled Trator, Trator. I mean, but the nickname is Tractor.
That's weird, because who's the other Brazilian guy?
Rafaelo Oliveira.
And isn't that Tractor with a C?
No, or it might be, but if it was, it's just because it was eventually in the UFC they started spelling it that way. I mean, I think regionally it was probably Trator.
Well, I imagine that Tractor is probably favored, and kind of, I guess, rightfully so. To me, like he's kind of like the default safer pick, considering Delatour is coming off 2 losses. Actually, both trained with decent camps. I don't know if he's full time, but Tractor's listed under Team Nog, and Delatour is out of the lab. I don't know. Just to make it interesting, maybe I'll go with Delatour, even though I'm grasping at why I was kind of interested. But either way, I think they're both unproven, and that it could kind of go either way. I'm not sure how anyone could have a super strong feeling one way or another, other than Delatour's dropped his first 2. And that
with
is
Chewy right behind
reason
you,
in
he can
itself.
tell you if you're one with the Force, you know exactly what's going to happen in this fight. Zane, how one with the Force are you on this fight?
I'm one enough with your thought process to know exactly what you are intending to say, but I don't know how much I agree with that or care.
What the fuck?
Make your pick. That's what I'm
Anyway,
saying.
yeah, I think this is a fight. Like, I think it's definitely a fight that hopefully one of these guys shows up and really shows a good fight, because it has the ability to probably just be sort of like this nothing fight that never gets above a simmer and everybody forgets about the moment it's over. Delatour, he's got some good explosive athletic ability to his game. He'll throw like flying knees and big hard hooks and go for power takedowns and stuff like that. And he's got a very good athletic base, but I don't know that all of necessarily the smaller technical pieces are there, which is maybe why in his fight with Ortega he just got submitted so fast, gave up his back. Trator's just really a consistent Muay Thai grinder. Just the kind of guy who's going to stand you up against the cage, go for elbows, go for knees, chip away at you, stay on you, and take rounds. And I think that could and should favor him here. I think it's on Delatour to then really show that he can athletically and physically take over and dominate somebody like Trator. And I don't know if he has the tools to do that with any consistency, so I'm going to take Trator for the win.
And the odds makers agree. Dallas, what are you?
I was just
going
to say, Delatour's kind of propensity for like violent outbursts can be both a great thing and a gift and a curse. So I don't know which way it's going to turn out, but I think it could go either. That really wasn't worth interrupting you to mention, but
it really wasn't, especially about this fight that nobody's even going to want to watch it for this long. Much less talk about it. So, Trator is favored at -186 all the way up to -200. Delatour is the underdog at +160 all the way up to +175. And
hey, Nate.
Yes.
It's good to have you back.
I'm glad. I know you were missed. I know I was missed. So the fans have been calling for me to be back on the show, being an asshole. They said it was getting too soft, too easy, too lazy. Nate, get back on the Vivisection, whip these boys into shape, and that's what I'm here to do. So next we got to keep moving on. Welterweight William Macario and Matt Dwyer. And Zane, you can go first, because Dallas is in the doghouse.
This is definitely the get-over fight for William Macario. He has to win this fight, I think. And, it's not like he has to win it or his career's over, because obviously he's only been fighting since 2010, but he has to win it to still be considered like a really interesting prospect in the division. I think that loss to Magny was just kind of a slow piecing apart that really made him look ugly after a great win over Bobby Volker. And Dwyer is not a technical fighter at all. He's just a pressure brawler, has no real style to his game, is just constantly aggressive and trusts that aggression is going to kind of carry him through the fight. And in his last fight against Albert Tumanov, that cost him early and badly. And so I think there's a real reason. It's reasonable to hold Macario to that same standard and say, here you have this guy who just faced a good technical striker and he got beat immediately. You need to go out there and you need to win this fight. And so I am picking Macario. But he's really got to make sure that he stays consistent and takes a win here.
And Dallas, do you agree?
Yeah, and I think part of my interest in this card is there's so much curiosity and I think so much to be answered. So, and Macario was one. I was blown away because he was a wrestler on. Was that the first Tough Brazil?
Second.
So he was, he had good striking, but he was a real physically imposing guy. And then I was really blown away when he fought Bobby Volker because his stand-up looked really, really good. I mean, it always applies, hindsight is 20/20, but even more so in MMA. And now I think in retrospect, Volker was a really good guy for you to show off new striking tools against because he'll put his head down and walk, right into your grill nonstop. So to me, I'm not sure how good Macario's striking was. Maybe that was just a favorable matchup. I know he's improved, but he's a young guy. I think, a loss would be, really devastating for him, but I wouldn't sign him off just that because he's really young and he's shown a lot of improvements so far. Dwyer's another guy. I believe they said before his debut where he got shit canned that he had just started training full time, like shortly before that, or maybe the fight before that. And, he's knocked everyone out in all 7 of his wins. DeMarcus Johnson was one of those. So to me, there's room for him. He's like the classic, like Stefan Struve, where he should be a striker and he's got mostly knockouts. He's like I think he's 6'4", and Macario's 6 foot or even a little under, but he doesn't have the striking technique yet to rely on that range advantage. So. I think Macario's going to win this, but I wouldn't rule out, Dwyer's another guy. He can hit hard even though it's ugly, and he's really fucking long. So this will be a big test to see how much he's improved since he has started training full-time and how much maybe room for improvement he has in the future. But I'll go Macario.
All right, and the odds makers agree. They've got Macario favored pretty heavily, minus 286, all the way up to minus 345. Dwyer is the underdog at plus 235, all the way up to plus 292. And that brings us to the ladies' bantamweight fight: Jessica Andrade and Marion Renaud. Dallas, you can go first.
So another one, I thought Renaud looked fantastic. I was blown away. Like I didn't even come close enough because in Dufresne's first fight, she had no problem getting things to the ground. So I didn't think Renaud's striking would work in that much. And obviously, I mean, shit, I think I scored that fight 30-24, like 2 10-8s and a 10-7. I mean, that was probably the most one-sided UFC fight in the organization's history. But so now the big question is, was that just a super favorable opponent for Renaud? I do want to say, regardless of who she was fighting, her technique was fucking on point. She looked really, really good. Not only throwing her hands, but the toughest thing is to be successful in striking in the when you're faced with the threat of a takedown. She's gonna have a big size advantage here too. I would guess Andrade is the favorite, and she's someone that I didn't give enough credit or respect to, and she's earned it. I think she's really, really tough, but I actually might go Renaud here. I'm guessing that Andrade is the favorite, and I think she should be, and if I were steering people, I would, tell them not to listen to me, as usual, but just to keep things exciting, I might take Renaud for an upset here. But if Raquel Pennington can do that well, sprawl and brawl, I think Renaud's game is a little sharper than that.
I see. Very interesting pick, Dallas. Zane, is Dallas crazy?
I don't know that he's crazy, but it does raise... It is a tough fight to pick, I think, just because Renaud... Or because... no, not Renaud, but because Dufresne looked so terrible. I mean, that was one of the worst
She looked like a heavy bag for the better part of a round and a half.
And so at that point, it can be a thing. Like, when you can suddenly feel that comfortable in a fight, it's a lot easier to show off all this technique you've been working on, where you're like, okay, look, there's no way this person can hurt me even a little. I'm just going to go crazy. And at that point, the fight still went all 3 rounds. So it's just like, I don't know how high I should be on Renaud. Whereas, I mean, I think Andrade, for her, that fight against Larissa Pacheco was really the fight that I think solidified her as a developed and continually rising talent, rather than just like, oh, she took a split from Pennington, she beat Rosie Sexton, she's lost to Liz Carmouche, and maybe, I'm not really sure where she is. But that fight, she had an opponent who was aggressive and young and on a hot streak, and Andrade just beat the piss out of her in, choked her out in a round. So I think at that point, I got to take Andrade here. I think she's developed her game a lot more and improved a lot more and shown that she has the tools to win consistently in the UFC. I don't know that I'd trust that out of Renaud, even though I think her physically she looks great and that she was able to display some nice striking against somebody who had nothing for her.
Yep, and the odds makers agree. Andrade is pretty heavily favored, minus 230 all the way up to minus 250, and Renaud is the underdog at plus 195 all the way up, plus 180 all the way up to plus 206, and that brings us to the first fight of the Fox Sports 1 main card, not to be confused with the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card. Santiago Ponzinibbio, the man bloggers love to hate. Dallas, you looking forward to live blogging this guy's name?
I just like to call him Ponzi, but there's certain fighters that were virtually the reason why copy and paste were created.
Yes, this is one of those guys, and he's fighting Sean Strickland in a welterweight tilt. In Dallas, you can continue talking about this masterpiece of fight.
Well, Strickland's kind of quietly come in, and I mean, he's undefeated. He was a King of the Cage champ, and that doesn't mean a lot when you come to the UFC. It means something, but I was pretty impressed. He choked out Bubba McDaniel with the quickness. Who was his second win over?
Barnett.
Oh yeah, and actually, I think Luke's pretty solid, and that was, to me, he earned a lot of respect. And actually, so I didn't watch Tough Brazil 1 and couldn't do a lot of write-ups on it, and the internet hated me for it. So I really must have watched Tough Brazil 2. I believe Ponzi was the guy that was on his way, or maybe even made the finals, but then got injured, or for some reason he wasn't able to finish.
He broke his hand during the semifinal fight and was replaced by Santos.
And I thought he looked really, really good. But I mean, I guess Ryan LaFleur is a pretty tough guy. So again, like I expected Ponzi to walk over him, but then he lost to LaFleur. But in retrospect, LaFleur is a pretty tough customer. So I have no idea how this one's going to go. I'm actually leaning towards Strickland, but I think that Ponzinibbio is a pretty big dude, pretty heavy hands. I'm not sure Strickland's got excellent scrambling. His wrestling is good, but I think his transitions and scrambling that's what I was really super impressed with. Damn it, I have no idea. I'll probably go with Ponzinibbio here. I actually think he might be a little more proven at this point. He's a little more dynamic, although if he can't figure out how to throw his hands without getting taken down, I think Strickland should be able to have his way with him.
And Zane, who's going to have his way with whom in this?
I'm going to go with Strickland here just because Ponzinibbio is... I think he's still a fighter. And actually, this is true of both of them. So I agree. This is a tough fight to pick. Neither guy has settled on exactly what they want to do in a fight. I think Ponzinibbio is definitely more comfortable going forward and brawling, but he's tended to have a lot of success when he is like a takedown, ground and pound kind of guy, and the brawling thing just seems to be something more where he gets stuck. And he has a great power and a good chin when he's brawling. So there's certainly the chance that he could just shut Sean Strickland down, because Sean Strickland on his feet is a really low output striker. Like, he does not throw a lot. He wants to counter. He's always trying to look to stay outside and land one big shot, and his striking offense is not really technical enough to make that a dominant skill for him. I mean, the reason that Barnett fight was a split decision was basically that Barnett couldn't track him down consistently enough throwing strikes, and every time he did, he would land on Strickland, and then Strickland would move away and land one or two of his own. But it wasn't, it wasn't the kind of counter game where you're like, oh, every time Barnett comes forward, he's just going to get hit really hard. So I think there's some serious doubts to be had about either man, but I don't know. I guess I feel like Strickland is just more technically diverse and less... I think he's more probable to go to his strengths, which are to stay countering and get a takedown and scramble well on the ground, find the back, and sub Ponzinibbio out, than Ponzinibbio is going to land just one big hard shot early and finish the fight. But I don't know. It's a close fight. I'm going to go with Strickland, but it could easily go either way.
And the odds makers have it close too, but they like Strickland. He is favored from minus 161 all the way up to minus 182. Santiago Ponzinibbio is the underdog at plus 140 up to plus 153. And that brings us to bantamweights. Yuri Alcantara against Frankie Saenz. Dallas, make fun of how I said that.
I think you said it right, actually. Which is funny in its own right.
That's the payoff there.
To me, it's going to take a special kind of fighter to beat Yuri Alcantara. And oddly enough, the fight I was most impressed with was his loss to Uriah Faber. And man, that counter hip throw he nailed right off the bat, and it wasn't just like, ooh, clever, technical. I mean, it was powerful and nasty, and you don't see that happen. I can't even remember seeing that happen to Uriah Faber out of anyone he's fought. And really, so he's well-rounded. I mean, he's proved he's a three-dimensional guy. He's got good striking from outside, almost more of a traditional kickboxing style on the outside, but he gets a little more Muay Thai-esque in contact range and in the clinch. And man, he's kind of showed a little bit of everything. I mean, good scrambling. He's smart. He's tough. He's quick. He's really slippery. He's shown submission ability. I wouldn't call him a submission wizard, but he's a tough matchup, man. So he's a three-dimensional cat, and I think Saenz is a little more, wrestling is his core competency, and even, I don't think he can just go out and take him down. And even if he does, I think he's going to get popped on the way in, and he's going to be at risk of getting swept or subbed if he does finish it. So tough matchup for Saenz. I like Alcantara here.
And Zane?
I think this is unfortunately one of those battles of, I don't know, unfortunately, but it's one of those things that kind of always makes me feel a little sad for a guy like Saenz, because it's a battle really of athleticism against technique. I think Saenz has a much more technical and developed game that he does consistently. He's gotten to the point where he likes to hit little like dumping takedowns, where he'll let his opponent back up and punch them while they're on the way up. He's got a really good controlling, clinching cage game, and inside boxing game. His style fits together really nicely, but I don't know that he's athletic enough to beat Yuri Alcantara, who really is just so dangerous and fast and powerful everywhere. You know, he scrambles well and powerfully and finds submissions and positions that way. He punches powerfully, and so when you're coming in on him, even if he's not technically throwing great punches or keep moving his head well or things like that, he's just so dangerous because he uncorks these hooks that are just really fast and accurate. And then, you know, he can shoot a powerful double leg takedown and put you on your ass really quickly for that same reason. And I could see Saenz, if he can survive the first round, I could see him winning the third. But I could see this being a situation where Alcantara even takes a split. But I think I got to go with Alcantara just on his athletic advantage.
And the odds makers, they like themselves some Yuri Alcantara. He is favored pretty heavily, minus 531, all the way up to minus 600. Frankie Saenz is the underdog at plus 350, all the way up to plus 445. That brings us to Adriano Martins versus Ruslan Khabilov, a big comeback fight for Khabilov after losing to Vincent Henderson. So Zane, why don't you talk about this one first?
All right, this is definitely a good bout, and I like them making this fight. I think Adriano Martins is one of the more underrated lightweights in the division. He's a guy that is not only is he huge for lightweight, you know, in that sort of typical Brazilian tradition of like Francisco Trinaldo and Leonardo Santos and all those guys that are just gigantic, but he's a very technical boxer and a very powerful grappler and wrestler. You know, really throws good combinations, especially from the outside, has a long boxing game, straight punches, and then is good at getting in the clinch and hitting trips and throws to get the fight to the ground, where he's just a really powerful submission grappler. Now, I don't know that he's evolved quite to the level, you know, when he got thrown against Donald Cerrone, he's not able to necessarily switch things up and think about what his opponent's going to do and how he needs to respond to that. But I don't know, you know, but that makes it a good test for Rustam Khabilov, because he has to show that he can do those kinds of things to win this kind of fight. I think, you know, in the Masvidal fight, he showed that he can create some tricky strikes, even against somebody that's dangerous and consistent and is a lot like Martins. So I kind of have to give Khabilov the edge. I think his consistent wrestling is such a problem for fighters. It's one that they don't encounter very often. It's one that they're not really prepared to encounter to the level in which he can hit takedowns. And that can kind of break down a fighter's entire game. So for somebody like Martins who's so tracked in, I think that Khabilov is maybe a very bad matchup, but it should be a really good fight.
And Dallas, your thoughts?
The only thing I disagree with, Leo Santos is tall and scrawny. He's like a T-bow type. But
I didn't say tall and scrawny.
No, I know. You said he's like Leonardo Santos, who's kind of tall and scrawny.
No, I'm talking about Buscape.
Oh, that's not his name, but I know.
Not Leonardo Santos, but
either way, yeah.
Anyway,
but Martins is monstrous. I mean, like T-bow. I mean, the dude is fucking huge. I actually totally agree that he's a for real sleeper. Like, no one has, you know, I guess given him a lot of credit. It's not that people should be like raving about him, but really, really super tough guy. And it's an interesting test for Khabilov, because out of all the people he's fought, he's never really fought someone that could straight up, you know, like overpower him at close range. I mean, Henderson's tough. You know, he's got good wrestling at close range, but Martins is like a big brute. I do agree that it's a bad matchup for him, though, because you know, he's got sambo, if that does, you know, and he's proved he's pretty proficient in all areas. But I see Khabilov having a range game that's going to give Martins a lot of problem. I don't know, Zane. Maybe does Martins even have a range weapon? Like, he doesn't throw any.
He throws really good. Is he a southpaw? He might. I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
A straight left or a straight right. But he does, like, his range game is basically throwing long straight punches.
Yeah, punches usually. So I think that's going to be tough because Khabilov has proven with his arsenal of kicks and everything that that's just the way I envision it. Is that Martins is a beast in the clinch. Khabilov, I mean, I don't see him getting overwhelmed there unless he's, forced to just sit there and battle throughout the whole fight in that area. And that's what makes it interesting because if Martins can corner him and get his hands on him consistently, he could cause a lot of problems. But I do think that the gap there is closer in favor of Khabilov than the free range striking. So if Khabilov is in open space, I think his movement and his repertoire of strikes is going to just wreak havoc. But if Martins, so it's going to be all about distance. If Martins can stay at a close range with him, this could be a real interesting fight. But I think Khabilov takes it.
And the odds makers agree that Khabilov is one of the most heavily favored guys on the card at -425 all the way up to -500. Martins is the underdog at +315 all the way up to +400. And that brings us to middleweights, Cesar Ferreira and Sam Alvey. Zane, what's Cesar Ferreira's nickname? Is he Monstro, Mutante?
Mutante. Or Mutant.
Mutante.
I don't know if it might be Mutant, but so yeah, Ferreira is this is one of those fights that unless he drops himself on his head too, I don't see him losing this fight. Alvey's not bad, but athletically, Ferreira has such a huge advantage that I don't see any way that he should lose this. But then again, like I say, I didn't see any way that Dylan Andrews should lose either. And then Andrews dropped himself on his head and gave Alvey that fight. So
Smiling Sam Alvey. What can you say?
Yeah, I'm going with Ferreira. I don't think it's necessarily a really complicated fight to break down. I think it's just about his extreme disparity in strength and speed.
All right, and Dallas will Smiling Sam be smiling at the end of this bout.
I agree with everything that Zane said, but I was actually really high on Sam Alvey, and I think it was when he fought Carl Amasu. He's crafty. He's clever. Why is everyone down on Ferreira right now?
He's lost to Dalloway, which was immediate and brutal.
Yeah, that was it. All right. He's a guy that I didn't place a lot of stock in, but he's kind of gradually earned my respect. And I mean, that dude is another guy who is a big boy. I mean, he's monstrous, but he's not lumbering. I mean, he's really agile for how big he is. He's definitely the favorite. I think the safer pick. But Alvey does, like, every once in a while he'll do some shit that will really surprise you, and it's hard to describe. Sometimes it's like a counter. In that fight, God, was that Tom Watson that he fought? Just out of nowhere, like he has the ability to do something unexpected that can drastically change the complexion of the fight. That's why I think Mutante should be favored. But I actually think that Alvey has the potential, at least, to make this really competitive and maybe even exciting, because he can be getting his ass whipped and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, turn things around. So I'm kind of interested to see how this unfolds, although it might be uneventful / a grinding win for Ferreira, but I'll go with him. But I guess I'm more open to Alvey causing some problems or making this an interesting fight than most seem to be.
All right, and the odds makers, they like Mutante as well. They've got him favored from -306 all the way up to -325. Alvey is the underdog, +250 all the way up to +269. That brings us to lightweights. Edson Barboza versus Michael Johnson. I think this is a fun fight. Dallas, disagree.
No, this is an awesome fight. There's nothing not to like about this fight, really. I mean, I don't know how anyone could complain about it. And it's got kind of that classic, you can't boil this down to just a striker grappler fight, but it might turn out that way. Both guys are really proficient. Like Barboza actually has really technical takedown defense. His leg kicks are brutal, and that might come into play because Johnson takes, which is smart for his style. He's a wrestle boxer, so for wrestlers it's natural to work on your boxing, but he does have a little bit more of that closed stance with the lead leg forward, which, I mean, that's like a worm on a hook to Barboza. So I really have, this is one where I have no idea how this is going to turn out. There's scenarios for either guy. Barboza is phenomenally technical on the offensive end, but we've seen that some of his defensive lapses can get him in big trouble. So the Jamie Varner fight, you could look at it as Michael Johnson should be able to do everything Jamie Varner did plus some, because he's a more fluid boxer, he's longer, he's more athletic, and he's probably a little bit more of a dominant wrestler. I know he can transition probably a little more fluidly than Jamie can, but at the same time, you can see Barboza playing the range game and using his footwork and angles just to stay on the outside. And I mean, the dude is phenomenally quick. It's rare to have someone be that quick and that accurate and that technical on all of his strikes. So to me, this is more of one where you can make a case for either guy. I'm looking forward to kind of leaning back and seeing how this one unfolds. It's pivotal for both of them in that whoever comes out on this is going to have a lot of momentum, because both guys have been right on the fringe of being considered, whatever, top 5, I don't know, a legit contender in the division. So, God, I don't even know. I haven't even thought about having to make a pick for this one. I'll probably go with Barboza, I guess, although Johnson actually maybe has been a little more consistent. So, I don't know. I guess I would maybe hesitantly lean towards Barboza.
All right, Zane, who you got?
Johnson definitely hasn't been more consistent. I think that's one of the problems with picking him in fights is that, he had those losses to Madadi and Jury and Sass and Brookins all in the UFC to break up any of his runs of success. But I don't know. Part of me wonders, I don't know that Johnson is a consistent enough wrestle boxer at this point in his career to beat Barboza, because he's not shown himself generally to be a powerful enough or aggressive enough striker to beat him. You compare Al Iaquinta's performance against Joe Lozon with Michael Johnson's, and yeah, Johnson pieced him up and dominated him totally for all 3 rounds on the feet, but he also never came close to knocking him out. Never really hurt him, never really took it, never stopped Lozon from pressing him. And so I don't know, if Johnson wants to hang out at range a lot, I don't know necessarily how well he'll do against Barboza. That's the kind of thing that I remember saying, it was going into it was kind of like the if I look at this as kind of like the Bobby Green fight, although Green screwed around a lot. It was just sort of this willingness to hang out outside and eat strikes from Barboza that really cost him over and over again. Part of that means that it depends a lot on how much Johnson has continued to improve under the Black Zillions and under Henry Hooft. If Hooft has been able to continue to advance his striking, then we could see him continue to turn a corner and come in even more technical. I wasn't that impressed with his performance over Melvin Gillard. I thought that was a pretty ugly fight. So I think I'm going to pick Barboza. I think that Johnson has ways to win this fight. We've seen how people can beat Edson Barboza, but I also think that Edson Barboza continues to improve and has improved more than people think. He's only been fighting since 2009. He's still a guy that has years ahead of him and should be improving. And I don't know that necessarily Johnson's tools are right to take to win this fight. I think this is one of those matchups that just does not favor Johnson right now, and it's tough to pick, but I'm taking Barboza.
All right, and the odds makers like them Barboza as well. They've got him favored from minus 156 all the way up to minus 154 all the way up to minus 165. And Michael Johnson is the underdog, plus 130 up to plus 140, plus 125 on one side actually. And that brings us to the main event, the fight everybody's been waiting for. This one is the big one: Antonio Bigfoot Silva versus Frank Mir. Be seeing the last time Mir won hashtags on Twitter. People are looking way back to 2011 and celebrating the good old days there. Okay, enough sarcasm. This fight sucks. Why are they having it? Are these guys both shot? Does Mir have any chance? What's the story? Who wants to hate on it first? Okay, Dallas, you win.
Oh, no. Dallas takes it.
Do you want to hate on it, Zane? I don't have anything bad to say about this fight at all.
He never does. That's why I wanted to make you hate on it.
Talk about it.
I'm okay with it. I mean, you can't quite call it a legends match or whatever, but I don't know. Bigfoot's, earned his stripes. I mean, I thought he
He
was
beat
going to get.
Fedor.
Well, I thought he was going to get plugged out like Cormier style. If you have someone, because everyone's smaller than Bigfoot and everyone's quicker, and his striking, it's weird because he's a dude. How tall is he? I mean, he's like
6'4".
fucking Frank. He seems so much taller than that. But for a heavyweight of his size to be able to like in place with no setup flick out like a left high kick, that's pretty remarkable for a guy of his size and a guy who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I think he's a Taekwondo black belt or some kind of traditional striking as well, and a Judo black belt.
He's got like 5 black belts, including,
Yeah.
I think, karate.
So at first I thought this was a terrible matchup for Mir because usually Frank has some kind of distinct advantage. So against Nogueira, he was the better wrestler, probably the more technical striker at this point. Against Big Country, he actually was the better wrestler. He could keep things standing and fend Roy off and just, dodge the haymaker. I wouldn't say he has one super clear distinct advantage over Bigfoot other than the one path to victory I see from him is exactly what Cormier did. To me, it's the biggest weakness for Bigfoot in that he's slow enough where if you can catch an angle and just measure your steps and plug them right in the face. Again, super high level technical analysis, but Frank Mir, every once in a while, he shocked people. He'll unplug that straight left hand, and he tends to drop his head beforehand, not like a traditional I'm totally faking you out, I'm going low for a double leg, because Frank doesn't even go for, singles or doubles that much anymore. But it throws people off. I mean, he got Congo with that. He got Big Nog the first time with that. And to me, that's totally viable. I can see him doing that. God, I don't even know what else to say about this one. I want to say Bigfoot, if things go at a normal pace, a normal lull, if Frank... And to me, that's my biggest critique of Frank Mir, is that he seems to have been really complacent lately, like just kind of willing to ride the fight out, where the reason he rose up and his most memorable fights are when he, exploded into some kind of memorable offense, whether it was submission-wise or surprising people on the feet. And I think he needs to do that. So I think Mir's mentality is really important here. If he just tries to go out and not look terrible and not lose, I think he will probably lose. But if he gets all full of piss and vinegar and tries to change things up and really come after Bigfoot, to me, I think that's his best choice. I don't know who's going to win.
I see. Can you pick a name.
Mir. I'll go with Mir, like old school. Again, no one really listens to me anyways, but I'm an old school
Hey,
fan.
we're listening. We're all ears. All right, Zane. What else was wrong?
This is such an ugly fight.
Look, we got one man with a 4-fight losing streak, one man with a 3-fight basically losing streak. He had a tie that was turned into no contest. This is high stakes.
Yeah, but that's not fair to put it that way, because they only lost to the top guys.
Well,
Bigfoot's
Bigfoot's loss to Andrei Arlovsky is a nonsense tragedy that makes no sense outside of the fact that he was off TRT. That is the only thing that makes sense about that, is because, Andrei Arlovsky's been fighting since 1999. I love Andrei Arlovsky. I think Andrei Arlovsky's great. But he's well past the point that he should be winning fights against somebody, a heavyweight who's still technically, in or close to the prime of their career. Bigfoot should still be, prime Bigfoot, not, 8 or 9 years in, right at the sort of, end of his prime. And Arlovsky, who's been fighting for 16 years, comes in and just beats the piss out of him. And if that version of Bigfoot shows up, Andrei Arlovsky looked like Cain Velasquez beating up Bigfoot Silva there. If that version of Bigfoot shows up, then Frank Mir can win this. Absolutely.
Of course, Mir's had his own bouts with TRT and various unexplained weight gains.
I don't know. It's just one of those things that, when you have those kinds of questions hanging over your head, and, you have...
On the other hand, the Brazilian Commission doesn't do, or hasn't done yet, random drug testing. So they only have to get past the test.
Well, that Arlovsky fight was in Brazil, wasn't it? Yeah, it was in Brazil.
That's true.
So,
Okay, that theory's shot to hell because he looked like a ghost of himself.
He looked really bad, and it's just one of those questions where, and so you have somebody who has the potential to look terrible against somebody who has not looked good for years, and I think that Frank Mir's level of not winning fights is it's much more consistent. It's much more tracked in where, yeah, he's not winning, but he's performing consistently. Win or lose, he's getting out there and showing the same kind of fight. And so it's really dependent on me on what version of Bigfoot shows up. And I have to think he wouldn't be fighting now if he thought he was going to fight again like he did last time. So I'm taking Bigfoot.
Yeah, one would hope. One would hope. So we'll see what the odds makers say. They've got Bigfoot favored at -289 all the way up to -310. Frank Mir, the underdog, at +220 all the way up to +250, +263. So there you have it. Set your Sunday night aside. Sit down, watch a lot of Midland level UFC from Brazil, and that's our show. Zane will be back with me for the 6th round after the fight.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we'll have the 6th round after the fight. Then Eugene will have Knuckle Up. Tom Grant won't have Inside the Guard. But then we got to get ready for UFC 184, the Ronda Rousey versus Kat Zingano fight. We'll have all the fixins, care, don't care, vivisections, etc., etc., etc. Remember, give us a like on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube, MMANation.com on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at TheZaneSimon, at Uncle Justice, that's Dallas Winston, at KidNate. Read us on BloodyElbow.com. And adios, MMA aficionado. Thanks, guys.